Welcome in the Matt Bernier Show on DRFTV, live.drf.com, livestream.com, Daily Racing Form's Twitter handle at DRF Inside Post, as well as the Daily Racing Form's Facebook page. My name is Matt Bernier. You can follow me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. This is the preview edition. Going to take a look at the 7th race at Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday. It's a stakes race, 3-year-old males on the main track, 7/8 of a mile. It's the Pasco Stakes. We'll use DRF Formulator. We'll take a look at some replays, give you some ideas. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. At the end of the day, as long as it helps you make whatever decision you want as the handicapper, and make your plays accordingly. We'll take a look at that race, and then we'll also go over the 2 NFL championship games coming up on Sunday afternoon, the NFC championship, the AFC championship, down to the Final Four. The winners of those games go on to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks. If you listen live, thanks for doing so. Podcast form, though, like most of you get this thing. YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. If you are over on YouTube, click that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up. Make sure that bell icon is lit up if you click subscribe, because then that way you get everything that DRFTV has to offer. And if you're over on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts, write us a review, give us a positive rating, subscribe. It's always greatly appreciated. If you want to comment on any of the races or anything, ideas, things that you want to see different beneath the video player on YouTube or to me on Twitter at Bernier_Matt. Without further ado, let's roll right into it. Let's get into the content, huh? The 7th race at Tampa, the $125,000 Pasco Stakes. Let's dive into that with replays and DRF Formulator. So this week, we'll take a look at one of the stakes races from Tampa Bay Downs on Saturday, 7/8 of a mile. You can see this is the $125,000 Pasco Stakes. These are 3-year-old males on the main track. I'm sure some of these connections have Derby aspirations, or at the very least Tampa Bay Derby aspirations. Whether or not that actually transpires, we'll find out. I think there's a scenario where some of these horses are actually pretty decent. I think there's a scenario where, you know what, some of them are taking a shot here with an opportunity maybe early on as 3-year-olds. You take a chance with a horse that's a little bit more on the precocious side, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. A few horses, we'll take a look at some of their replays as far as stakes are concerned. Admittedly, for this exercise here, I haven't done the deep dive as far as the pedigrees are concerned. That will come up, I'm sure, if there is anything of substance over in the stakes preview, which you can find over on video.drf.com or here on the YouTube channel. Well, let's just start off with the first horse, the number 1 Jackson. Now, Jackson comes over from Gulfstream Park. He ran in the Buffalo Man most recently, and he was a pretty soundly defeated second by 2 lengths to a horse called Zendin. Now, Zendin is also going to be running in this spot. He's the number 3 horse. You can see from a speed figure standpoint, I think he is slightly light as far as the number is concerned. I think it's going to take somewhere in this 81 ballpark to get the job done from a buyer standpoint, and a 103 as far as the raw time form rating is concerned. They're still so lightly raced, it's not impossible to think that they move forward. But at the same time, this horse has gone out 5 times. He has not even, as a 3-year-old, gone back to eclipse the buyer that he earned here as a 2-year-old of a 79. So something that you want to always keep in mind. Are these horses improving or are they plateauing? They're still lightly raced, but that still doesn't mean that there's a scenario where they aren't getting better. Is this horse just sort of staying the course and staying on par with what he has accomplished in the past, or is he improving? And then as far as the 3 horse Zendin is concerned, you can see this was his first start here in a couple months. He goes out for Victor Barboza Jr. This was first time going up against winners. And in the grand scheme of things, if you're looking at the 2 horses, I think Zendin is probably the one that you're more intrigued with. As I've said in the past, you can go and use the formulator replay function. I think that's usually the way to do it. But for this exercise, this is a heck of a lot easier for me using RTN and YouTube. Here they are. These are the 2 horses in question out here on the front end. You have Zendin, you have Jackson. We'll run the tape, and you'll note that they're going to streak away basically from everyone else. This horse here, the 3rd place runner right now, is 2-1. These top 2, though, they were very clearly 2 of the choices in this spot. They're actually going to come together briefly, and I don't think it's really an instance of one horse necessarily being that much better than the other, but there are some things in here that I just don't particularly like about either of them. You're going to see right here, the 6 horse, down on the inside, he's going to pop back to his left. He's going to pop to his right lead early. Keep an eye on this. He's going to be on his left lead right now. They're going to briefly come together when the tape finally runs again. Watch his front leg right there. He's going to pop to his right lead. I usually don't like to see that. That's normally not a positive sign. On the flip side, watch the 7 horse. He's hanging on his left lead. It's going to take him a pretty substantial amount of time to change over right about now. He's going to change over to his right lead. again, I get that these are lightly raced horses, particularly Zendon. Zendon is the one that I can give a little bit of the benefit of the doubt to, simply because he is only raced twice in his career. But there is a part of me that says, you know what, in these instances, when it was the two of you kind of in a match race, you can both get away with those little quirks and those little nuances. Against better horses, against 7 horses total, just makes me wonder a little bit, quite ready for a stage like this. And having said that, from a speed figure standpoint, they are right there. The 102 time form rating here for Zendon, the 83 Buyers speed figure. I think the 83 fits. And guess what? The time form rating, I was just splitting hairs at that point for not giving him the red color coding, in my opinion. I think Zendon fits in here, but I'd be lying if I said I was thrilled with either of those horses coming out of it. If they can win, but I'm just not thrilled with them at the prices they're likely to be. Then you can see I have written in here, don't love the effort from Jackson. And as far as Zendon was concerned, a bit late with the lead change. Just thought he was okay in the grand scheme of things. Now, I skipped over the number 2 Over Deliver for Pletcher. This horse, you'll note, he's cross-entered at Gulfstream on Saturday as well. He broke his maiden in his career debut at Gulfstream back on December the 23rd. 81 Buyer, only a 96 raw time form rating. I keep going back to it. You can see the difference. Usually, we're looking at about a 20-point differential between the time form rating and the Buyer. If one is higher than the other, then that's when you want to go and take a look and see maybe one is a little bit more accurate than the other. If you're believing the Buyer number, he certainly fits in here. If you're believing the time form number, there's a scenario where if you take 20 points off this, perhaps he's closer to a mid-70 as opposed to a low 80 in that career debut. Having said all that, this was really the race for me that I don't know what to make of this horse just yet. He's here in these Rapoli silks on the outside. Look, he's even money sitting off of an 18-1 shot. You're not going to draw up a better trip than this. Having said that, this is going to be a little bit more on the workmanlike side than I'd like, and also a little bit more on the green side than I'd like, considering this is a Todd Pletcher trainee. Pletcher's horses are usually very, very professional. You're going to see this horse is extremely early with the lead change. You're going to have to keep an eye on it. He's going to finally pop out here on the outside. Keep an eye on the front 2 legs right there. If you're having a hard time with the lead change thing, I'm going to try to give it to you 1 or 2 more times. Keep an eye for one little action different with his front legs right there. See that little hop over to the right? We'll do it one more time. Rounding this horse on the outside. He's on his left lead, left lead. You're going to see just when he comes into picture his 2 front legs right there. He pops to his right lead. Now, that alone is bad enough. But he's going to set this horse down. John Velasquez is aboard. And right now it looks like he's home free. He's going to go on with it. There was a little bit of a bump right there between he and the 3 horse. Now you're going to see him hop to his left lead and have his head cocked out to the grandstand. This horse has no idea what he's doing at this point. So I can look at it one of 2 ways and say he got by on talent alone, which is nothing to sneeze at. I'd rather have some talent and be a little bit on the immature side than just be professional and not be able to run. But at the same time, when it comes from a barn like this, you can see the gallop, that was decent enough, nothing spectacular. When it comes from a barn like this, they are usually so professional, and they usually do everything right. I'm not saying that this horse won't be more mature second time around, whether he runs here or he runs over at Gulfstream, but it is just one of those things. Again, at a shortish price, given the connections, I don't know if I love that. I like to see a combination of the two. I think with a horse like this, you're looking at them saying they're raw and they can, who knows what the ceiling is, but they are going to be a little bit of a work in progress. And when it comes down to strictly just a gambling standpoint, in this race alone on Saturday, if he runs here, I don't know that that's something that I'd like to gamble on. I think he comes down from this 4-1 if he runs here. And look, maybe he's the horse with the most upside going forward, but he's just a little bit on the green side. And I think he needs to learn a little bit before I really go buying in at odds of 4-1. And we move over to the number 4, WinWinWin. Now, WinWinWin might be the most likely winner of this race, in my opinion. You can see he has speed figures to his name already. The most recent run at 7/8 of a mile and 86. That's the highest last out Buyer in the field. Highest last out raw time form rating over here with the 108. The run 2 starts back his first time against winners, the 83 Buyer, the 113 raw time form rating. Considering that was his first start against winners, and he goes off and he basically spread eagles that field. He goes off and wins by more than 6 lengths. I thought this was a solid enough effort, one that made him deserve to be an even money favorite in this 7/8 stakes race here. You'll note that in the run 2 starts back, he defeated a next out winner with a 57 Buyer. The second and third place finishers both earned 69s. So in the grand scheme of things, this horse has already done some solid enough running. Now we come up here to his most recent start. Now keep an eye on this 2 slot right here. this two posts. These are the live oak plantation silks, the red cap with the white body. He's going to be slow into stride. As you can see here and then up here, you can see he spots that field a good 2 or 3, maybe even 4 lengths when it's all said and done. He's going to trail behind for the most part, but I like what the rider Pimentel did. Gets him out into the clear, tries to get him to relax a little bit. Timeform US has the internal split, the middle fraction of this race color-coded blue. So when you're coming from dead last like this, probably not the easiest thing. Now we're going to fast forward a little bit here because this is really when he starts to pick it up. I like what this horse does right now. He's still relatively lightly raced in the grand scheme of things. He's not afraid to go between horses. You can see the horse in the blue silks on the inside with the maroon and white silks on the outside. This horse, WinWinWin, will split the two of them, angled down here to the inside. And I like the fact that right now it looks like he's got a full head of steam and he's going to go on with it. Keep in mind, though, the horse that's been out there on the front end setting those soft fractions is 5-2. He's a choice in here. He's one of the horses that's supposed to run well. They turn for home. It has long been documented that inside at Laurel, probably not where you want to be. I also don't think this is the most comfortable sort of trip for a horse like this, given this is really his first time against quality competition, maybe his second time against winners, but he's down, hemmed on the inside by this horse on the outside. That's not the most comfortable of positions to be. I'm giving him bonus points for splitting horses on the far turn, and I'm not going to hold this against him. The fact that he couldn't go and get that pace setter who was meant in this race. He was bet down, and he came over. He had to overcome a slow start. He had to overcome slow pace, as you can see by this piece right here. I thought this was a big effort. To me, he's one of the more likely, if not the most likely winner of this race. I don't know that there's a ton of speed in this race, but I think there's enough in here to set it up for a horse like WinWinWin. At 5-2, I'm not going to argue with anyone that chooses this horse. War Bridle, I liked this horse's race right here at Tampa. This was his first start in, about 6 months almost. First start for New Connections. I thought he did a lot really well. Goes off and wins by more than 7 lengths. The concern I have, you look at the field, it was decent enough. The runner-up is 63. The third place finisher, next out winner with a 51. The concern is he's just slow compared to some of these other horses. He's going to need to improve by leaps and bounds. I already had this horse in a DRF horse watch, and I was hoping he would just show up in a bit of a softer spot. I understand why the Connections want to take a chance here. I think he's overmatched. The 6 is Gladiator King. Now, this horse most recently ran in the Mucho Macho Man. He was no match for Mijos. He was no match for Trophy Chaser. These are nice horses, very, very talented horses. I'm not going to hold that against him. He was 57-1. Set fast fractions faded. 2 starts back in the inaugural here at Tampa. He got the job done by open lengths, but you'll note that the dirt horses that he ran into in the next start, they came back, and they really haven't flattered that form. The 5th place finisher with a 52. The runner-up came back to earn an 11. The third place finisher was a next out winner on grass, albeit with a 73 buyer. But the big piece right here, I don't like that it came over a sloppy sealed track. That's always something that gives me a little bit of concern. You'll note this Remsen 3 starts back. He was no match for good horses. Again, Maximus Mischief network effect. And then you go back to this run on turf. This is where he was really, it seemed like he was going to excel and end up being a grass horse. I still think ultimately that's where he'll end up. But again, I'm not going to fault the Connections for taking a chance with a 3-year-old early on while you still think that you've got an opportunity. I don't love his chances in here, but he should show some speed. That brings us to the outside runner, the number 7 Cave Run for Owen Hardy. Now, I just talked about sloppy sealed tracks, how I usually don't like to see emphatic wins first out or early on over those sort of things, just because I think they're very difficult to gauge. Was it truly as good as it looked, or was it aided by the fact that this horse probably didn't hate it, while some of the other horses may have had issues with it? This also goes for the other big 3-year-old race on Saturday, the Lecomte, the horse that I like in there. The Mark Casse runner, War to Win or Win to War, whatever his name is. I can't remember off the top of my head. His big win came over a sloppy sealed track. I loved everything about that horse, the way that he did it. But look, if it ends up being a fast main strip, he's going to have to prove that he can do that same sort of thing that he did at Churchill Downs over the Fairgrounds main track. The same goes for Cave Run in this race. I loved everything about this race. Highest last out buyer in the field with an 86, co-highest anyway, along with WinWinWin. The 105 raw number for a debut I thought was solid. The 8th place finisher in that race came back and earned a 63 buyer. And you're going to take a look at this replay here. He's in the familiar Godolphin silks here on the outside. There was not a ton of pace in this race. Timeform US had the internal fractions color-coded blue, so he's got to go and get into it a little bit early on, and he's just going to range right up on the outside. I love that. Look, he's getting pushed on a little bit, but we're not talking about an all-out drive. I like, for the most part, again, this is a first-time starter. Like the way that he's doing it here. You're going to see a little bit of a bump as they come off this far turn between he and the number 1 horse. And I have to admit, I kind of like the fact right there's a little bit of a bump. I kind of like the fact that that didn't bother this horse whatsoever. He changes leads professionally. He gets hit with the stick a few times, and he just draws off. I love the way that he finishes here. He really extends down the lane. I really have no knocks about this race. The only concern is how are you going to handle winners for the first time? I love the gallop out. The additional distance I don't think is going to be an issue for him. See the pedigree at face value, street sense out of a Bernardini mare. In the grand scheme of things, I liked everything about it. Now, again, it's a sloppy sealed track. Who knows how that's going to end up ultimately playing out? Was he just kind of did he appreciate that more than the other horses did? Whatever the case may be, I really couldn't find anything to fault with that effort. You also have this little formulator fact right here for Owen Hardy. Past 5 years, winner last out, that was a maiden. Second time starter in sprint races, 3 for 6.5 in the money with a 646 ROI. Basically, here I am. I'm showing you my hand. I like this horse. I like Cave Run. I thought that was a good effort, and to me, it was good enough to get the job done in a race like this. If he runs that race back or he improves slightly, I think he can get the job done. I love the outside draw for him. I think you can play the break, let the speeds to the inside go, come with your run. It's going to be faster paced than that most recent run for you was. To me, it's a cold 7-4 or a 4-7. Maybe I would box it or obviously weight it accordingly. 7-4, 4-7 for me. I think Cave Run and WinWinWin, those are the 2 horses for me. I threw Pletcher's horse in third. I think he's green as grass. If he runs here, he's just going to need to be a heck of a lot more professional. Perhaps he's the one with the most upside going forward. But at this point right now, I like everything I saw from Cave Run, and I like everything I've seen from WinWinWin. To me, it's 7-4 in the 7th at Tampa on Saturday. It's the Pasco Stakes. 7-4 exacta, 4-7 maybe back it up for a saver. So Cave Run for me there. Hopefully this gives you some ideas. Maybe you like some stuff. Maybe you don't like some stuff. Let's roll it in. It's championship weekend in the NFL. AFC and NFC championship games. 2 slots on the line for the Super Bowl. Championship week is here for the NFL. NFC title game is first. AFC title game is second. Both of them coming on Sunday. Down to the nitty-gritty. 2 spots for the Super Bowl on the line. Last week, a little bit of a mixed bag for me as far as the wagering is concerned. Patriots come through. Disappointing on a couple of those games, though, where I look at it and say, you know what? The Saints, if Lutz makes that field goal at the end, you get over the number. The Chiefs game, I was just entirely wrong about because I didn't think the Colts would forget to show up and play in their game. That was a little bit disappointing. And as far as the Rams and Cowboys game is concerned, again, it was a matter of 1 point being the difference between a push and 2 points being the difference between getting the job done. So obviously it's been a bit of a rough stretch here, but at the same time, I'm taking solace going into these games that it's right there. And it's one break here or there. I said at the beginning of the postseason, I thought this postseason was very difficult to gauge as far as who's actually good, who's going to perform well, who's going to get through. Well, ultimately, it's been very, very formful. And some of these games, like I said, to me, they've been coin flips either way as far as the spread is concerned. Hopefully this weekend is okay, and maybe we can gather some momentum. I know next week is the off week between the championship games and the Super Bowl, but there will be other things. There'll be other games out there to be had. So we'll kick things off with the NFC title games. The Rams at the Saints. The Saints are laying 3 points. The Saints, for that first half last week, it really looked, I shouldn't say the first half, but the first quarter, it looked like there was a real scenario where the Eagles were just going to go and blow the doors off them, which it just seems so odd. But at the same time, New Orleans, for let's call it the last quarter of the year, it's not like they were going out there and waxing teams. I mean, they rested everyone the final week of the regular season, knowing that they had a bye week the following week. So in many ways, they had 2 weeks off. A couple weeks prior, they had absolutely bare games. Just nothing was really flowing along. And then they come out basically sleepwalking in that first quarter of the game last week against Philadelphia. Took them a little while to get the engine cooking again. I guess the tough thing there is you look at that fourth quarter, if Alshon Jeffrey doesn't let the ball go through his hands, and if they just kind of take a little bit more time, given the circumstances, Philadelphia had plenty of time to work with, and they were inside the 35-yard line, inside the 30-yard line maybe. There's a real chance that they could have lost that game, New Orleans. There's just still a part of me that says at the Superdome, against good teams, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Against really good teams, does LA fall into that category? I don't know. I mean, it never really felt like that game against Dallas last week was in question. No, the margin may have ultimately been 8, but I never really, at no point did it really feel like the Cowboys, to me anyway, were really in it. The fact that New Orleans, or Los Angeles, excuse me, was able to just stuff the ball down their throat for over 200 yards. I mean, C.J. Anderson's 100 years old, and he looks like Terrell Davis out there in his prime. So I don't know what you want to do with that. I don't know that that is going to work in New Orleans. I like the fact that New Orleans pitched a shutout after giving up 14 early. For the rest of the game, they were basically... Now, look, that was part and parcel. Part of that had to do with the fact that Philadelphia, really, their offense just kind of stalled. But I have a difficult time at this point. The team that has been this good all along, they have the home field advantage. And with the Rams, I still feel like there's a scenario where if you rattle Goff's cage a little bit, I wonder if all of a sudden things go a little bit sideways. I love Robert Woods. I think he's great. They've talked about him a number of times. Everett, the tight end, I think is sneaky better than a lot of people think because he actually plays more like a wide receiver, but he's got the body of a tight end. Maybe he does. I don't know. I'm not saying he's going to have a big game this weekend by any stretch, but just the fact that he's actually, I think, a little bit better than people have made him out to be. They've got other weapons, no question about it. They can score. Whether it's Gurley out of the backfield, I can't imagine C.J. Anderson having another big game like he did last weekend. You got Reynolds on the outside. They're doing all this without Cooper Kupp. I think they're nice. You got Brandon Cooks as well. I have to go with the Saints at home. It's only 3 points. I feel like the Saints are a better team than the Rams. I know that matchup earlier in the year, it was only a 10-point game. I just still think the Saints, it's felt like this has been their time for quite some time. I think the Saints are going to get the job done. I'm going to lay the points. Give me New Orleans -3 at home in the Dome. Now, this one, I will say, there's a little bit of rose-colored glasses here looking at this game. The New England Patriots are going into Kansas City. The Chiefs are 3-point favorites. I said last week, on paper, there was nothing to suggest that the Patriots were better than the Chargers, but I was still picking the Chargers. And ultimately, it was far and away the most complete game the Patriots have played all year. It's not close. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching, the whole nine. It was the complete package, which had not been seen at any point this year. They dominated every facet. On the flip side, the Chiefs, they basically dominated every facet of that game against the Colts at home. I guess the difference there is, and I suppose you can look at it and say they're very, very comparable in many ways, those two games. The teams that went in didn't show up. The Chargers were terrible. Terrible. They didn't do anything right. Play calling was a mess. Phillip Rivers kicking dirt all over the place, just getting pissed off at everyone. And as far as the Chiefs and Colts are concerned, Andrew Luck was god-awful. They couldn't stop any kind of pass rush. You had Ford and Houston just firing off both ends. And that's coming from a defense in Kansas City that's not good. This game, to me, I don't have a better way of putting this, and it sounds very similar to what I brought up last week with the Pats and the Chargers. On paper, there was no reason that the Patriots should win that game. Coming in here to Kansas City, there's really not a ton to suggest that the Patriots are a better team than the Chiefs. Offensively, the Chiefs are much better. Defensively, I think the Patriots are better, but having said that, it's been well documented that the Patriots, as far as the run game is concerned, they can give up big chunks of yardage. And now keep in mind, everyone wants to point out, oh, well, they shut Melvin Gordon down last week. Well, there's a couple things that go into that. When you get into as big a hole as the Chargers did, it's going to be difficult to just run the ball because you're down by, it was 35-7 at one point in the first half. Melvin Gordon had 2 banged up knees. And now you're going to be dealing with Damian Williams. Say what you will, say that he was the third stringer at one point. He is effective. He gets the job done. He also, he can keep everybody honest by releasing and being a pass catcher out of the backfield. Offensively, I think Kansas City certainly has more weapons. I think defensively, New England, I'll give them slight edge over Kansas City. Special teams, I'm going to give the edge to New England just because that's been their hallmark basically for the duration of this run. Their special teams has always been one of the best aspects of the team. I get that going into Kansas City is not an easy situation. The weather, everyone keeps bringing it up. Now it sounds like the temperature is going to be a little bit warmer. Maybe the high is in the low teens or even into the single digits, the high single digits, low teens. At the end of the day, I think this is going to just be an instance of Who do I trust more? Belichick or Andy Reid? Call me a homer, call me what you will. I trust Belichick more than Andy Reid. I'm going to take the Patriots. I don't know if they're going to win. I think it's going to be close. And having said all this, they have been terrible on the road this year. They've just been terrible. They've been two totally different teams. And this is why I'm kind of bringing up the Chargers aspect from last week. On paper, there's really nothing to suggest that they're better than the Chiefs all around. But I'm going to stick with them. Give me the Patriots, +3 on the road in Kansas City. I think that, look, if they play the way they did last Sunday, they're going to win. They'll beat the Chiefs if they play that way they did at Gillette. If they offer a good effort, but not that full, well-rounded kind of performance that you saw, then I don't know that they're going to get the job done. We'll find out. I'm going to take the points, though, on the road. In Brady and Belichick, I trust. Give me the Pats +3. So, quick recap. The Rams at the Saints. I'm going to take the Saints -3. The Patriots at the Chiefs. I'm going to take the Patriots +3. You can get all sorts of details as far as betting trends are concerned, key injuries, matchup previews, all sorts of good stuff over on sports.drf.com. That's where you need to go. Next week, we'll be going through a little bit of, let's call it research and development as far as how we're going to ultimately unveil something that will be a sort of daily situation where there'll be little videos that'll go out there. So something to keep an eye on. But sports.drf.com, that's where you want to go for all of the news and information that you need as far as making intelligent wagers on sports is concerned. There's more and more states that are pushing through legislation. New York earlier this week, Massachusetts, Charlie Baker getting it done. Obviously, he's got to get passed, but the idea is they're putting bills through. So we'll find out. But it sounds like more and more people are hopping on board. Sports.drf.com is where you want to go for all your information. That's going to button this show up, the preview edition. If you've been listening live, thanks for doing so. Live.drf.com, livestream.com, Daily Racing Form's Twitter handle, at DRF Inside Post, or the DRF's Facebook page. If you listen podcasts like most of you do, YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, video.drf.com, as well as Spotify. If you're over on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, click subscribe, write us a review, give us a positive rating. If you're over on YouTube, click the subscribe button. Make sure the bell icon is lit up and there's not a slash through it. You'll get everything that DRFTV has to offer. Questions, comments, concerns beneath the video player on YouTube or on Twitter to me, at Bernier_Matt. However you play, whatever you play, wherever you play this weekend, best of luck. I will be back. I don't know how we're going to do this. We have the holiday on Monday. I am off Tuesday. There'll probably be a recap up sometime on Wednesday, so you won't get it live, but the podcast will be uploaded. And then we'll roll right into a preview coming up next week. We'll see how everything shakes down. Enjoy the holiday. Be safe. A lot of snow and crummy weather coming up to the Northeast and all over the country for that matter. Enjoy whatever you've got. Best of luck. Without further ado, the latest edition of Out of the Gate. I'll talk to you next week in the recap edition of the Matt Bernier Show.